This is Gary Atencio with CNTV, and today we're in Denver, Colorado. I am here at Move Studios. Since 2009, they have provided movement therapy from the studio into your daily life with an integrated and connected body. I am here with the owner as senior instructors. Let's start off a little bit about your story. You relocated here in 2001 from New York City. This has kind of been a journey for you. You've actually been on the staff of physical medicine. You have so many certification registrations to do this type of therapy, physical exercise. You have an arsenal to pull from, quite honestly. Share with me a little bit how this passion got started for you.
Well, ironically, I was in New York, and I was a choreographer and a director, and I worked with actors, and I was looking at going to grad school. And I was in an amazing acting class that incorporated this movement work that I'm now trained in, the Laban Bartenieff work that I'm trained in. And it was incredible for actors. And so I was applying to graduate schools, and I decided that I was going to pursue this to train actors. And I went to the University of Utah, and I began to study the work. And when I did that, I discovered this therapeutic aspect to the work that was incredible. And I happened to be really good at it. I was the one that everybody came to and said, will you work on my shoulders? Will you help me with this? And I just loved it. And I was really burned out in New York. And long story about how I randomly picked Denver, but I did. And I moved here. And when I finished my graduate program, I moved here. And I applied for a job at a physical therapy clinic. And I said, this is what I do. And they had no idea what I did, but they brought me in and they interviewed me. And they said, we're not really sure what that is, but it was an integrated medical center where we were working with complex motor vehicle injuries. And they said, we're not completely clear, but it seems like it might help our patients. Why don't we try it and see how it works? And I was so lucky because the physical therapists there were amazing. I got to work with neurologists, osteopaths, acupuncturists in this integrated setting. And as a movement therapist, I was completely unique, and they respected me as a colleague. And so we all learned from each other for 6 years at Denver Injury, and it was a miraculous experience for me. Coming right out of this program, I didn't even know I could do this for a living, and here I was working with people and changing their lives.
That is fantastic. Ashley, let me ask you, you're basically a senior Pilates instructor. This is something that, did you guys meet in New York? Because you're from California. Yes. You went to New York. You both have kind of a background, almost theater, dance, that type of thing. How did you get involved doing this?
So I came into Pilates a little differently. I was very accident prone growing up. I had a lot of injuries, broken wrists, broken leg, dislocated knee, lots of stuff I don't even want to get into. It's a long list of injuries. And so I was seeing a lot of PTs, and they really weren't helping me. And then I met this one PT, and I said, how come you're so much smarter than the other PTs? And he said, I'm a Pilates instructor as well. And I said, I need to start doing Pilates because this has helped my knee far more than any PT work that I've done. And so the next year I found a person that was in their training for Pilates. I took Pilates from her at Chico State. Then when I moved to New York, I found this program. It was called Half Moon Pilates in Dumbo, Brooklyn, run by Lawson Harris. And she had this great program because I was broke, as any person that moves to New York is broke. So I was able to work there on work study and learn from her. And from there I got, I wanted always more education. I love learning. That's why I decided to work for Lindsay, because she's always innovative and always looking for the next thing. But I worked with other people and got more certifications and more and more and more. And then what happened was my husband decided to go back to school to become a doctor, I was very happy with that because I work in physical therapy. We kind of do physical therapy here too, even though it's called Pilates and movement. But he got his residency here in Denver at UC Denver for anesthesiology. So we decided to move. So born and raised in California, moved to Brooklyn, New York, 12 years. We didn't meet there, but we still have that New York mentality. So we're always going, always doing things. And then I came here about 6 months ago to Denver. And so far,
that is great.
Ironically enough, I was in Manhattan, but I was there also for 12 years, whatever that magic number is. But it's like you're there and you do your time, and then you're not so good.
Definitely a story that was meant to be, it looks like. I mean,
that's how we feel. Because we're
let me ask you, I mean, it seems that movement is something that has been monitored since we were a newborn. I mean, doctors are monitoring our movement. They're always seeing if our health based on our movement. As we continue to age, do we almost start believing in the belief that our movement should be limited? And do we sometimes do it prematurely? And does that not always have to be the case?
I think the interesting thing about that is, people aren't really monitoring your movement. Most doctors and physical therapists don't have the kind of movement analysis training that I have and that Ashley's used to from observing movement on the level that we do. That's really not the training they get. And the training they get is great. I mean, you know, I can't stitch somebody up and I can't diagnose cancer. I mean, that's not what we do. Yeah. But what we do is we're so focused on this ability to really see movement, particularly with my movement analysis certification. That is what we did. And it is a whole language to see movement in a particular way that those other people you mentioned aren't doing that from when you're a kid. So when you are younger, you are often dismissed if you have an accident or an injury. And they're like, oh, it's okay. You know, they rub your knee and they say, it'll be fine. Or they rub your head, you're okay. And then 20 years later, you're in here working with me. And you're like, well, yeah, when I was 15 and I fell off my bike, you know, blah, blah, blah. But they said everything was fine. And, you know, often we can trace injuries you're struggling with now back to something that happened because no one was paying attention. And then I think the second piece to that is there's a mentality now in our country because we have the science. Oh yeah, I'm just going to get a knee replacement. Oh yeah, well I'll need a hip replacement. Oh yeah, well I have a shoulder surgery. That's what happens. That's not what happens. There's no way I'm going to get any of those surgeries unless, God forbid, I'm in a car accident or something terrible, something very acute happens to me, because I move 24 hours a day. Yeah. Ashley's constantly working. She does yoga and workout fitness. She does all of these things because we know that we need to stabilize our bodies. We need to mobilize our bodies. And the work I'm trained in is very specific about moving with ease. And once you learn to move your whole body easily and in the manner that it was meant to move, you don't have the wear and tear on your joints that you have if you're just going blindly through life with a body that's uneducated.
I mean, the body is an amazing thing. We are not using it. We're trying to repair it. Like you say, we're using first alternatives to turn to surgery instead of last alternatives, which is not the way to go. Let's educate the viewers a little bit. First of all, what do you mean when you talk about a connected, integrative body?
So our bodies, a lot of people do not know that when we're born, our brains are not fully formed. If they weren't, we would never get out of the birth canal because our heads would be so large. So we're actually born with our brains not fully developed. And we develop our brains through 6 developmental movement patterns. So when babies are small, they don't move much at all. And then they start to move kind of everything in their arms and their legs and then shake, those big things they do, right? And we laugh. And isn't that cute? But what they're doing is starting to connect all their parts and pieces into their center. They go through these kind of large movements, right? Once that happens, their spine starts to wake up and they begin to look for their mother and they begin to turn their head. And now we start to get spiraling and 3-dimensional movement. Then what's the next thing? Well, they want to get to their mom or their toy or their bottle. Right. So now they have to learn to move. So now they do an upper-lower pattern. Their legs and arms start to develop. And then once that happens, you know how they rock back and forth, but they don't move much. Sure. Then they start to move. They can kind of swivel one side and the other. That's a body half. They move like a lizard at that point. Developmentally, we've moved on to a lizard. And then one day they decide that they really want to get somewhere and they have to figure that out and they start to reach across, and that's a cross-lateral pattern. That's what we do every day when we walk, or at least theoretically. But if you watch people walk and you know what you're looking at, you'll find that most of them don't have any of these patterns in place. And so when I talk about that connected body, we have a motto around here that strength is easy. Strength is easy because anybody can hand you a weight and tell you to do 10 bicep curls. But if you're doing the bicep curls like this, with an arm that's disconnected to the center of your being, your core, if you want to use that term, your powerhouse is what Joe Pilates called it. If your arms and limbs and head are not connected and supported from the center out, you're more likely damaging yourself than helping yourself.
I believe that. Yeah, I mean, this is like you say, more holistic health. This is holistic exercise, providing the whole body. I mean, when I look, I see a lot of the movement here. I mean, I got tired just watching it. We're talking about stepping, swinging, jumping, throwing, pedaling. These are all things that we can do, but yet you're integrating them in such a way. Is this the type of classes that anybody can start out with? Are you only looking for advanced, or is this something that people can start out not knowing anything?
You can really start out as a beginner. When I first came to the studio, Lindsay was like, would you be interested in teaching beginners? And I was like, I love beginners, because it's actually better if you haven't been in the fitness world and you come to me because you don't have bad habits. Lindsay's worked on me. I've seen Lindsay move too. We all have bad habits. We all have movement patterning that needs to be fixed and corrected. But when you come to us with nothing, it's almost better. It's like we have a blank canvas to kind of help integrate why you're feeling this pain, why you feel misaligned, what's causing your misalignment, why did you get this knee injury, why did you get this ankle injury, and we kind of fit together the pieces to integrate a better plan for you and better fitness plan to actually execute in your daily life.
So it's a lot easier to have someone fresh. You don't have to unlearn them from what they had before. Let's get a little specific on this movement therapy. Let's talk about the LMA. The founder, the visionary, is a dancer, like yourself, basically figured out a way to analyze. Go a little deeper into this for the folks.
So his name was Rudolf Laban, and he felt, as a dancer and an architect and an artist, as a matter of fact, he felt that dance was a very disrespected art form at the time. And this is back at the turn of the 19th century. So other art forms, you have a painting, you hang it on a wall, you are a musician, you write a score, and then 100 years later that's there. But if you make a dance, it's gone. And then because they had no video and they had little photography, and they had no way to record. And so Laban decided that in order to make movement respected, that it needed to have a language. And so he began to develop a way of writing down movement. And in the course of developing that, the only way you can write it down is if you can analyze it and figure out what it is. And so his work became something that has 4 pillars to it: body, effort, shape, and space. The language that he created is called Laban notation, and you can study Laban notation and learn how to write detailed work. I learned to write all the basics. We do something called motif writing. So it's kind of like baseline Laban notation, but not very, very complex. And I use it every day in my notes when I'm working. The Bartenieff work that I've studied is the body piece of the work. So Irmgard Bartenieff was one of his dancers who was also a physical therapist. She emigrated here to the United States, and she integrated based on all the work that Laban was doing. So, for example, with the space, he created scales. In the same way with music, you have music scales. He created scales with the body. And when you do the scales and you go through these scales, which he created inside of an icosahedron. So an icosahedron has 3 planes, and those 3 planes mimic the full range of motion of the human body. So he created these scales within those 3 planes so that if you do them, you've moved the body through its full range of motion in all directions. But in order to do that, it's really hard.
I would imagine.
And so Bartenieff took her work as a physical therapist, as a dancer, and as someone who understood these developmental patterns, and created the Bartenieff fundamentals, which I use every day in my work. And that's how she created it so that people could do the Laban movement, but also all other movement. The reason it's called fundamentals is that all that movement is fundamental. As I said, it's what a child does from the day it's born. And so she began to integrate that into movement and teach people how to move with ease, because poor movement is dis-ease. And so Laban created this entire comprehensive system. It's the only system that exists for qualitative analysis of movement. And it's full from, being able to go into the detail of writing it down to looking at effort, which has to do with how you use your energy and invest your energy in your movement, because we all do that in a very distinct signature. And shape has to do with relationships. So, for example, if I wanted to meet you, I might reach my hand out to say hello. But if I'm a minister, I might do the same kind of thing, or a clergy person, I might do that, but I might caress that hand a little. I might hug you. So I'm integrating I'm bringing you into that space versus I'm kind of coming from me to you.
Interesting.
These are all, this is all within shape, right? So all of these different things go into how you move and I move, how we communicate, and how we move every day in our lives. And the more we integrate all of that movement, the more connected we are, the less strain and stress we have, not just in our bodies, but we can tell you in our lives. And that's why movement is so critical for us in this society, where we're all so disconnected from each other. We are with phones and computers and televisions, and there's all of this disconnection. We not only lose connection with each other, but we lose connection with ourselves.
With your own body.
With your own body. And once that happens, you end up with a whole bunch of you can end up with very serious issues, many of which, if you can reconnect, you can resolve. And that's a huge piece of what we do here.
LMA, BF. This is a dancer meeting physical therapist. They come up with a system so they're able to analyze the body movement. As a practitioner, as you analyze, what are you looking for?
I'm looking at all of those things I told you about.
Really?
And I'm looking at detail. And Ashley certainly is looking at a lot of detail, where your ribs are in relation to your hips, where your pelvis is in relation to your knees, where your head is in relation to your neck. There's a lot of relationship issues. Ironically, it's called movement therapy. And I tell people it's like every other kind of therapy. It's all about your relationships. And so if you have a dysfunctional relationship between your neck and your shoulders, you need to adjust that relationship. And it doesn't happen by here, hold yourself like this. It's not that simple. You need to be able to move in all aspects. Movement is dynamic and life is dynamic.
And Lindsay created this really great evaluation sheet where the client comes in, they're brand new, they have a 90-minute session with one of us, because 90 minutes is enough time. An hour really is not enough time to analyze someone for the first time you've walked in. And so there's all these movements that we watch, we make them do. We don't tell them what's going on. We just say, do the movement like you would normally do, because when they do it how they would normally do, we see the disconnect. And it's easier for us to identify their movement, what's the word I'm looking for? Movement limitations, right? Restrictions, limitations, tightness, soreness. We can see where they recruit to do that exercise, and where they should be recruiting is not necessarily the right place. So we have this whole detailed list. We go through it, and by the end, we have a really good sense of what we need in their movement plan for the future.
So in a simple word for my viewers, what you're looking for is dysfunction, plus everything else. Yeah. Once you find this, what are some of the approaches that you're able to correct that? I mean, it almost seems like we're reteaching ourselves how to move, repatterning. This is really what you're doing.
I love that you get it.
Repatterning.
That is exactly right.
So smart.
So smart. So that's it. So depending on the person, and this varies wildly. I have clients who the first session or the first couple sessions, the most important thing I'm doing with them is getting them on the floor and getting them to breathe and getting them to reconnect in that body pattern, that first body pattern, which is breath patterning. Mm-hmm. So that infant that's newborn that you put on your shoulder that just kind of melts into you, that's the ability to melt in, just the way I'm melted into this chair to have a conversation with you. I get clients who have such trauma or extreme pain levels that they no longer are able to find that place of support. So that's one extreme. On the other hand, we might have somebody who's, doing pretty well. They have very strong legs and they have very strong arms, but they have what we call an upper-lower disconnect. They can't get from one to the other. So they're moving themselves around maybe with their upper body, and their legs are functioning, but not really connecting. So if you've ever seen that cartoon where a lot of the times the old cartoons where the top of the body stays still and the legs are doing this underneath, it's a little bit like that, right?
Yes.
Because
no, it really is.
and we see it. We immediately, it's like, up, the upper lower, no connection. And a lot of times those people can be very strong because, that little baby that's on the floor, the reason they eat and sleep is because they're working so hard to learn when they're back and forth or when they're learning to stand up and they have to use their legs and stand up. Like that's a lot of work, right? Yeah. So this person might be working very hard. They might be very fit, but they're so disconnected that they're doing twice as much work to get half the result. Once we can help them be connected, they can do half the work and get twice the power out of it because now they're organized and they don't need to strain. And it's amazing to watch that happen. And anywhere in between, right? We can have somebody who's mostly there, but they're stuck at that. There are 6 of those body patterns I mentioned. They may be stuck at number 5, which is body half. And we see that a lot. You can watch it in people walking down the street that walk with the same arm and leg. And if you watch, you're like, I see that, because they're missing that cross-lateral piece. Mm-hmm. And Ashley, if it's okay to say this, has some dyslexia. Yeah. And one of the reasons that dyslexia happens is that these patterns get, along the way, you need to get from your body half pattern to your cross-lateral pattern. And if that gets interrupted, the brain, the cross-laterality of the brain is where dyslexia comes in. Mm-hmm. It gets stuck in one half and the other half, and it has a hard time flipping side to side. And when you can physically change that with this patterning, you can often correct that dyslexia.
Yeah. Awareness through movement. This type of therapy, so you're saying it can affect us obviously physically, but it also is neurologically. Behavior, like you said, even things that you've gone through. Does that amaze people after they've done it for some time? And it's not just a physical change they're going through, but all of a sudden they start saying, hey, my behavior's changing, or I just, the light went on.
Well, my favorite part, and I get this a lot from my teaching, is Ashley, I was taking this class and I was thinking about you and I was hearing you in my head and hearing your cues because the teacher wasn't cueing me because I know what I need to work on. So I love when I hear the students say, I have you in my head, Ashley, when I'm doing other forms of exercise, because then that tells me that they're really hearing and maintaining that cueing and connecting their mind to their body. Because that's what movement's all about, connecting your mind to your body. You're not just moving with no rhyme or reason. You're thinking about what muscle is stabilizing, what muscle's articulating, why are you doing this movement, what are the benefits, what are the gains, or if you're feeling in the wrong place, why are you feeling it? And I love those discoveries because they're like, oh, I'm feeling it in my lower back. Does that mean I need to pull my belly button and my spine? Yes. See there, you got that. It takes a while, right? Just like anything, but they really start to get that the more they practice any kind of movement.
That is amazing. LMA, BF, these are all therapies that most people have never even heard of. I mean, quite honestly, that's why I thought it was fascinating to come out and put this on tape. Yet they have heard of Pilates. Yes. which is great. They've seen Pilates done on a mat before. Maybe none of them have ever seen a room like this filled up with actual equipment. Tell me how the equipment kind of incorporates or adds on to what you can do on a mat.
Well, I'll tell you a little bit about this. This is called the Reformer. So Joe Pilates created 22 pieces of equipment, and he created all this equipment to assist people in learning what he created on the mat. So by providing resistance, that helps people to recruit the correct muscles. And so he started creating various things. He was working at a hospital in the Isle of Man, and he started working with the bed frames in the hospital because he had guys that were laying in bed after World War I that couldn't move, and he knew that in order for them to get healthy and not die of influenza or whatever. He knew that they needed to get moving and strong. So he started using the bed frame. And one of the pieces of equipment you were seeing Ashley work on earlier was known as the trap table, or sometimes as the Cadillac. And that piece, if you look at it, you can really see the frame-like existence of it, and it has springs on it. Sure. So he used frames and springs to help these guys get up out of bed and get back down and get up and get back down. And those are the basis of some of the exercises we do now. So everything here is a way and a means, and that's why, as a movement therapist, I use the Pilates equipment as well as the Coraline, as well as the red cord, as well as the motor. I've chosen these pieces of equipment, all of which assist people in learning how to move more efficiently and effectively. And so all of these pieces of equipment have various ways that you can resist. The reformer is working bilaterally. So for example, when you're using the ropes, it's 2 ropes with 1 pull of a spring. Whereas on the Cadillac, we have separate springs. And so that we can do a different challenge when the springs are separate. And then, as I said, I have other pieces of equipment that we use for other things. The Coraline is standing work on carts with a ladder. So that's extremely functional. And by then you have to be able to stand up and pull it all together. Pilates chairs are terrific for ab work and stabilization and balance. And again, really organizing yourself. If you can't stay organized on the chair, you just can't do the work. So there's various equipment. We have ladder barrels and spine correctors and arcs here. That's some of people's favorite things to work on their backs and open up their spines and breathe better. So we find that all of the equipment that Joe created, it all serves a purpose and it all facilitates people learning the movement.
I mean, when you're talking about Pilates, it's really an established set of motions and exercises, whereas the LMA, with the two together, it almost seems like the most personal approach you can get with Pilates. I mean, it is something customized and designed for you. Is that what you're really doing? People come in, obviously you can come into a class, but can you also do private sessions that are really, drill down, tailored for you?
Yeah, we do offer mat classes, we offer reformer classes, we offer privates, duets. And like Lindsay mentioned, our client comes in and whatever they are dealing with that day, we have the knowledge to help them out with that. So sometimes we have something planned that we want to work on with them, like that they didn't finish last time, because we write down all of our notes from every session. And then they come in, they're like, I'm having major neck pain. Okay, we're going to do something totally different. And then we can use the red cord, the Coraline, traction their head up so that they get some little release in their neck, So it really just depends on what they want to work on, because we can tailor their session to them and how they're feeling that day.
Wonderful. So you can tailor it to each individual and also the different types of individuals that walk in. I mean, some people are obviously integrating this into their normal daily life, work life, social life. This has to be great for the hardcore athletes that are really looking for the edge. Is that something that you're able to help with as well?
I think what's great about what we do is the hardcore athletes, they tend to be challenged. For example, I did a class years ago, and the strength and conditioning coach from the Chicago Bulls was in the class with us. It was called a lumbar local stabilization class. We were working on the small muscles that are supposed to stabilize the lumbar spine. And when we went around the room and said why we were there, he said he was there because he had these big, strong athletes who would lean over to pick up a pen and throw their back out. And he said, there's got to be some reason that this is happening, and that's why I'm here. And there was a reason. The reason is when you work what we call the global muscles. So you see these guys, and they're pumped up, and they've got muscle everywhere.
Shoulders.
They got nothing here. They can do all of that training without organizing and controlling. This goes back to what we talked about. The connection, the connectivity is the difference between being a healthy, successful athlete and avoiding injury. And, now we can see that in people like Antonio Brown, who is an incredible wide receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And he does Pilates with a colleague of mine, Chrissy Romaldi Ruby in Pittsburgh. He works with her on the Coraline and on suspension work and on the Pilates equipment all the time. And injury-wise, I've seen that guy get hit, knocked over, twisted, and he gets up. He walks away. He's almost never been laid out except one time that he had a concussion. But you don't see him get, he's flexible, he's mobile, he's brilliant. He can catch anything, land his little toes in. Like his ability to organize his body is brilliant. And so you have a high-level athlete like that, and they're in doing this kind of deep, focused, organized work because he recognizes the longevity of his career is dependent on that stability. And that
You've got to be able to pick up a pencil, even though you're picking up these large weights, and it'd be a shame that something like that takes you out.
Yeah, and if you think about like the movement that we're talking about and thinking about like soccer and basketball, that lateral movement, that cross-patterning movement, if you really work on that mind-body connectivity, you're going to improve your game so much. Even gymnasts, any kind of person that's athletic, skiing, like all that cross-patterning, if there's one thing that's stuck, that might cause an injury, or maybe that's why you got the injury in the first place. So being an athlete and trying to improve your game and being the best athlete that you can be, Pilates and movement therapy, red cord, all that stuff is really going to improve your ability to perform.
Absolutely.
That is exciting. Viewers, let's take a look at the bottom of the screen right there. What you're going to see is their website. First of all, on the website, take a look at the histories of a lot of the education and experience that you have under one roof here. I mean, quite a few years of experience you have to be very confident with a lot of the tools that you're able to pull out of your bag for folks. I mean, it almost seems like you guys are challenged when somebody walks in and says, I have XYZ, and you're like, got this perfectly set up for you. On the website there, you can obviously set up, take a look at the classes. They've got classes right there, workshops as well. And if you're not sure, come on in and talk with them. Get a 30-minute screening done. Find out exactly where you're at. Don't be afraid as they're looking at you and analyzing things, because they're going to reveal it for you a little later on, what was found. And then obviously, being able to correct that. Let me ask you this. This was something almost very personal for both of you. You yourself didn't even realize you could make a living in doing something like this. For you, you were looking for something better. You were looking for more. You kept looking for it, and you found your answers, and you continue to find them. Ongoing education is what you continue to do. I can tell you're both really just saturated in learning more. Does this continue to be rewarding for you as you see people really change before your eyes?
It is a gift beyond belief to watch somebody change. To have somebody come in, I've had clients come in that didn't smile, and they were in such pain. And to see that first smile after they've been here a little while and the pain's gone, or the pain's going, wherever, all of a sudden one day they actually smile or they laugh. And they may not even realize that they've never smiled or laughed like the whole time they were in my presence. But I know how much they hurt. And to watch that go away, to see the magic, the absolute magic of somebody getting their body back, of somebody no longer being afraid to move. I have a young woman that has 3 small boys at home. She had a back injury that they were like, well, we don't really know. We'll just stop moving. It doesn't seem to hurt you when you don't move, so just stop moving. And for a year, she didn't move. She has 3 active little boys at home. And she was convinced when she came in here that she would be in pain forever, because that was basically what they told her. And within a few weeks, she just kept saying, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. I'm sleeping through the night. I'm not in pain. It doesn't hurt anymore. And when that kind of thing happens, there's no way that I can even express to you what that feels like.
I bet.
I emphasize this with my clients too, and I know that Ashley does too.
Yeah.
We don't do this. We facilitate for them.
Yes.
It's our job to give them the opportunity to get their body back, and we do everything in our power. We have connections with doctors and physical therapists and massage therapists and all kinds of people. We have a real team, and we work with them. We communicate, because our job is to help this person get their body back. And it's the person who makes that choice, and it's the person who makes that change, and we get to facilitate it, and it's just a joy to watch it happen.
That is fantastic. I mean, Ashley, you are a product of the system. I mean, you are a success story behind all this. You've been there, done that. You know what it's like for a body not to be functioning as it properly should. You know what it's like to go into therapists over and over and go, I'm just not getting the results that I'm looking for. If someone out there, like yourself, was having some challenges and they don't know where to turn, they're maybe intimidated by a classroom or what have you, what would you tell them?
I would say do some research. Like, get out there and find what's best for you. Go out there and find a movement therapist. Go out there and find a Pilates instructor. Go out there and find a red cord specialist. They told me at 18 I needed 2 knee replacements. And I was like, this is not good enough for me. I'm only 18. I don't need knee replacements. I realized it was a actual trait in my family to have externally rotated knees. So my knees were more likely to turn out and dislocate. So that was genetics. But I found out through my research from finding out and trying new PTs, you have to find that person where you create this partnership. It's not like going into a training session and being like, oh, I'm here to train. No. I'm here to get fit. No, it's like, I'm here because I'm in pain. I'm here because I feel like I have a little bit of imbalances. I want to work on that. Sure, you're going to get fit in the process, but if you can find someone to actually have a partnership with you, and that's what I love about Lindsay, is like, you don't just come in and get a session and not learn something from yourself and not give to the session. We're giving you our energy, you're giving back us your energy. So it's this great partnership. And if you have a partnership, just like in life, you start to learn from your partner and you start to give and take and give and take. So that's what I really love. And so if you ever have a problem or an injury, or if you're not liking the answers that you're getting from doctors, or like they wanted to give me pills. I was like, I don't want to be on pills. Come on. I need to figure out what's really the underlying cause. I don't want this to happen again. Just go out there, do the research, find a really good rehabilitation center, or come to Denver and visit us, okay?
That's the real answer right there. Come on down. Basically located here in Denver.
If I may just add to that, I think that's really key, that the education piece.
Sure.
So she said, yeah, do some research. And a lot of people end up here because they did do their research, because they haven't gotten the answers they're looking for. And we are constantly in education. I just finished a test out and a certification this past weekend. We're constantly learning new things, learning from new people, and we bring all of that to our clients every day. We want to educate them, because any education is yours forever. You get that education and you have it forever. And it isn't about us, like I said, or, our class is the best and we're the best. And, it's about what we're going to give you as this education. And you get to take that with you. And whatever you do, you move to another city, but you will have that education, just like if you got a graduate degree or an undergraduate degree. You have it forever. And that's yours. You get your body and your education, and you get all that back.
Investing in yourself. Wonderful. Absolutely. Viewers, last time, let's take a look at the bottom of the screen right there. You're going to see their website right there. You can basically set up that free session right there, where they're going to take a look at you and find out what they can learn from movement. I mean, this is an organization that began in 2009, rightfully named Move. I mean, you're going to see a lot of that going on in here as well. And come out, check it out, and like she said, do your research, and you'll find out that the answers are out there that will help you in the journey through life. That is the art of movement improvement. This is Gary Atencio with CNTV, and if you don't know, now you know.